What's going on, you guys? Drew Hernandez here with Lives Matter. Welcome to the next installment of the Lives Matter official podcast. If you are new to the show and you have not subscribed, make sure to do that right now before we begin. Subscribe below and also hit the bell notification to never miss a video from me. I want to thank you guys and every single one of you guys that have been donating and supporting me monthly. Or just one-time donations. Every bit, every cent counts, and I appreciate everything that comes in through the donations. And if you have not by now, if you would like to support me monthly, you can on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Or if you'd like to give a one-time donation, the link is below as well. So let's get into this. So I was in D.C. last weekend for 4th of July. There were multiple protests, not only just going on in D.C., and so I covered about 3-4 protests throughout the entire day on 4th of July weekend. There was stuff going on all over Washington, D.C., and I did my best to cover as much ground as I could. The first protest that I covered was actually at 10 in the morning. It was supposed to take place at the Martin Luther King Memorial, but they had everything blocked off for miles. So the protesters had to regroup and regather. And they regrouped and regathered in front of the African American Culture Memorial or Center or wherever it is in D.C. And they began to march. And a few interesting things were happening during this march. They were making, their intentions very clear that they wanted to vote Donald Trump out of office.
Vote him out! Vote him out! Vote him out!
And hilariously, even the dog is an SJW chanting along with Black Lives Matter.
No Trump! No KKK! No fascist USA! No Trump! No KKK! No fascist USA!
So the protesters were protesting throughout the streets of D.C., and they ultimately made their way back to the so-called BLM Plaza. Now, there were a couple interesting things that I was able to witness as the protesters were making their way into the plaza. One of the things that I saw was actually a BLM protester that was actually wearing whiteface. Now, you can only imagine if that was switched around, you know what would happen. And there were also BLM protesters arguing with each other. And in the middle of it, a so-called, I guess you could say, white ally of BLM tried to step in and, bring the peace. And he was instantly disciplined for doing so. Take a look.
I'm Sunni Muslim. Yeah. You the same one to put out people to sleep. Yeah, you a Sunni Muslim? Yes. Your people, you the same people that put love you too. Black is disgusting. I love you too, sir. This ain't your body. This ain't for you to talk. Let me talk to the
Equality, right? When a black man is disciplining a white man for wanting to, establish peace. If you try and do that in 2020, especially in the Black Lives Matter, so-called Black Lives Matter plaza, you will be harshly disciplined by black people because, equality. But if it's the other way around, you'll be accused of being a white supremacist and a racist. But, there's no hypocrisy there. Also, during 4th of July weekend, I was able to actually cover a BLM protest. It started in Staten Park, and they were actually making their way to a council member. Her name is Alyssa Silverman, and I guess there was a vote taking place earlier this week as to whether they want to defund the police in D.C. And these protesters actually marched to her doorstep and actually called her out of her home in order to intimidate her. This is literally intimidation of politicians because they show up to her doorstep, they call her out, and they start harassing her and start being extremely disrespectful to her to where she actually turns around and says, "Hey, you guys are bullying me." I guess this is what Black Lives Matter does now. Take a look.
Yes or no on defunding the police, which is what this is about.
I don't respond well to bullying.
Okay, so great. So
What do you call those? And what is that but a bully? Nobody responds
I don't agree with you. So I'm saying I don't respond well to bullying.
you're going to take money out of
Let me know when I can speak. Let me know when I can speak.
I'm curious, because I just want you to help defund the police because it's too much money.
Well, I'm saying, here's where I agree with you. You are looking for where you disagree with me. There's a lot of places where I agree with you. We need to have a much, let me know when you want me to speak.
I'm just saying, there's one thing that we're here to talk about. You can see it on her face. You can see it on that. You can see it right there and right there. There's like I'm sure we agree with a lot of things. I think that murder is bad. I'm sure you do too. But right now we're talking about defunding the police.
What you gonna do about it?
$10 million from a $578 million budget to go from there to assisting child care providers to meet COVID-19 health
Again, I
regulations.
don't know. So you can say no. Go ahead.
We're not saying no, council member.
Go
You're
ahead.
saying no.
No. You're bullying me with a bullhorn. That's called a bullhorn for a reason.
Okay.
Okay?
So,
Will
It
you
is.
take $10 million from MPD to assist child care providers and meet COVID-19 health regulations?
I support putting this money in.
you don't
Will you
support
take it from
taking it out of the budget of $500
I'm
million.
not sure. I'm not
It'll
sure.
make it 560
already taken away like 500
already said
million.
no to
No, you said no to all of
I said no to all of them.
So-
You have bullied me, and I'm saying that I have to weigh the choices. You don't want to weigh the choices.
Yes, we
No,
do.
you guys
Okay,
don't.
all right.
Pay attention. I told you that last time. Stay focused.
See, it's very hard.
So,
Is that a microphone?
people in the community.
Oh my God.
No, this is microaggressions. Your tweet about your fucking rights is microaggressions. Your tweet about Black Lives Matter being anti-Semitic is microaggressions.
Where's our
Don't try
ally?
me.
Where's
Not
our
like that.
ally now? You said we didn't make it, we weren't an ally to you, and then we showed you how we gave you the statement when it happened. Where's your ally? Only thing, where's your ally?
Now just think about the context of what's happening. There's a vote that was about to take place in D.C. I don't know what the outcome was, but the vote had to do with defunding the police. And she had voting power to do so, and Black Lives Matter has an agenda, and they show up to her doorstep being disrespectful and bullying her. You know, props to her for actually coming outside. I believe she's an independent, but props to her for coming outside and actually talking to these people, because these people are very threatening. She even says, you guys are bullying me, and she has the right to not come outside and talk to these insane people that want to defund the police. While they were even talking to her, one of these radical BLM activists is literally pointing at black cops saying, I don't give an F about their jobs. Makes no sense. Take a look.
Frankly, I don't give a fuck about their jobs. That is the trade-off and we are asking you to join us in that trade-off.
Okay.
That their jobs not be more important than the lives and livelihoods of black people in this city.
So I don't
That's a
disagree
trade-off.
with you on that.
But you do.
And
No, I don't.
Find other jobs. Why don't all of us have to work
So
real
yes or
jobs?
no? Do you think that
What's a
do
real
you think
job?
MPD should be smaller?
You don't think their job is
No,
a
they're
real
a death
job?
squad.
Please
They're
pay
paramilitary.
attention.
Now, I thought Black Lives Matter, but I guess if you're a black cop, you don't matter. I guess if you're a black cop in DC and you have kids, your black babies don't matter, because BLM is on tape literally saying and pointing to black DC cops and saying, I don't give an F about their jobs. Oh, but Black Lives Matter. But I guess this is the tactics that Black Lives Matter uses. They use intimidation in order to show up to an elected official's house or a councilwoman. These people are clearly not here to have a conversation. They're clearly not there to reason with this woman. They are there to bully her and to intimidate her using fear and numbers in order to sway her vote, in order to get what they want, making demands. And it's interesting that they're doing this before, or a couple days before, a vote that this woman is about to make. This is intimidation. And this is the tactics that Black Lives Matter is beginning to use. And it does get worse. The next thing that I covered was actually a blackout protest, which started in front of the state capitol, and they were protesting. They started there and they went up through the capitol, in front of the capitol, and then they started going through the streets of DC with making all of their chants, which was interesting as well. A lot of the Black Lives Matter activists, and I'll show you a clip right now, were actually leading just a bunch of white people in BLM chants. It's very strange and cringe. Take a look.
They gotta hear you! They gotta hear you! Don't stop! Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot!
Now, I think it's interesting. I think the tables have turned. It seems like the black community, especially in Black Lives Matter and the hard left and the Marxists within, are just completely dominating white people and controlling them. A bunch of NPCs and robots that are being programmed with different chants. They don't even know what they mean. They don't even know what they are. But it does seem like the black community, especially these radical Marxists, are being utilized in order to dominate and program. I guess you could say reprogram white people. It's very strange. But this particular protest ended up in the Martin Luther King Recreational Center. And they kind of had like this whole picnic shindig where it was kind of like Chaz vibes, where people were, sitting in the middle of a baseball field in the outfield and the infield. And they had a little stage set up where they're giving all their inspirational Black Lives Matter speeches, talking about how white people are bad and the 4th of July is racist. And if you stand for the flag, then you're for the patriarchy and you don't really understand America.
2 weeks ago, we celebrated Juneteenth. So what do we need July 4th for? We're not here to celebrate freedom and liberty. How can we? Too many of us are stuck in the racist chains of klepto-capitalism. No, I'm not here to celebrate freedom and liberty.
Just all the radical Marxist views that they've been poisoned with in their universities for the past, who knows, maybe 4, 8, 10, 12, 15 years. That's all you ever hear at one of these things. But they also were giving out free food because of socialism and communism, and I'm pretty sure it came from some type of capitalist system where someone worked for that money in order to provide all of that food and all of those snacks. But nobody's going to talk about that, because if they do, you're a hypocrite and you're not a true comrade. But hey. But anyways, so the speeches began, and shout out to the Gateway Pundit. They actually covered this in mainstream news, and I'm thankful that they actually covered this story, because it seems like a lot of people weren't even taking this serious. But I was listening to God. I was listening. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to cover what these people were saying. I listened to about 3 speeches. Now, one of the speakers, which was a Black Lives Matter activist, made a very profound and not surprising, but radical statement. Take a look.
No protest is peaceful. We want to disrupt the peace until we can get what we demand in our communities and for our people. That's what this is about. Black Lives matter. They still matter. They've always mattered.
Do you remember what Hawk Newsom said, the leader of the Greater New York Black Lives Matter chapter? Remember what he said, that if we don't get our demands met, we will burn down the system? Remember that? This is a common thread, and it's a trend that you're seeing over and over and over again at Black Lives Matter gatherings and rallies or protests. These people are not peaceful. They're making demands, and they're making threats. These are terror threats. And you have a Black Lives Matter activist literally on stage. You see the gigantic sign blasted right there, right in front of for the whole world to see, standing on that stage, telling the entire world, representing Black Lives Matter, that no protest is peaceful and that we want to disrupt the peace until we get what we demand. Again, my friends, if you've been watching any of the coverage that I've been showing you of Black Lives Matter in D.C., whether it's in Tulsa, whether it's in Los Angeles, wherever it's at, it's always the same message. Give us what we want or we will shut you down. Give us what we want or we will disrupt your peace. These are threats that are being made to America. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, these people do not care. They are Marxists. They are self-proclaimed Marxists. They are not afraid of the fact that they are Marxists. And communists and Marxists, they make threatening terrorist demands because if you do not submit to what they want, then they will remove you by force. That is what communists do, and that is what Marxists do. And Black Lives Matter is not peaceful. I have so much sufficient evidence to prove to anyone that wants to sit here and tell me that Black Lives Matter is a peaceful organization. They are not. There's a reason why they're making these threats over and over and over again. It's because these people are serious and they are anarchists and they are in bed with Antifa as well. And they will use any force necessary in order to get and to accomplish what they want. And that's dangerous. No protest is peaceful, and we will disrupt the peace until we get what we demand? That's not protesting. That's anarchy. Those are threats. That's how terrorists talk. Unless you give us what we want, we will disrupt the peace. I'm sorry, my friends. That's the complete opposite of the First Amendment, and that is definitely an attack and a threat to our Constitution, regardless of political party. That should alarm you, because whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, these people don't care. That threat is to you. And if you don't bow down to their Marxist ideologies, then you will be disrupted. Then you will be burnt down, because you, in their eyes, are the system. And what's the system? Anyone that is against what they want. The system in their eyes is not just conservative. The system in their eyes is not a white supremacist. The system in their eyes is anyone that does not submit to what they want. And that should concern you greatly, because your time is coming. Now, I wanted to go over the main story. Probably the most radical thing that I witnessed while I was out there. There was tons of things going on, and obviously I'm one man. I can't be everywhere at once. But towards the end of the evening, I caught wind of a protest, and it made its way through BLM Plaza, and it started making its way through the streets of D.C. just before the gigantic, spectacular fireworks show that I've never witnessed anything like that. If you've never seen fireworks in D.C., you haven't seen fireworks yet. It's Disneyland, nothing comes close to the fireworks that I witnessed in D.C. They're phenomenal. They're amazing. Anyways, just before, when the sun was going down, I caught wind of a protest. It went through BLM Plaza. They were going through the streets of D.C. But while we were marching, and I was recording it, and this totally threw me off guard because I didn't know that the opposite side was even in town. I didn't even know that the other side was marching. There were Proud Boys, there were Trump supporters, and there were patriots that were marching as well. And at this point, they clashed, and it was interesting. Very interesting. So what began was when they saw each other, they lost it. They started cussing at each other. They started throwing things. The BLM supporters started throwing water and started throwing objects at them. But then this happened. Check it out.
Stop fighting! You a bitch! You a bitch! You a bitch! Wow, fuck you up, boy! Wow, fuck you up, boy! What's up? What's up? Go right away! This ain't the time! Go right away! Go right away! Keep going!
Keep going. Stay on the sidewalk, guys. Stay on the sidewalk. There you go. You guys are domestic terrorist pieces of shit is what you guys are.
Say, fuck all of y'all. Fuck you.
USA! 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 USA!
So while Black Lives Matter is marching in the streets, you have a white Black Lives Matter supporter wearing clown shoes, might I add, crosses paths with a black patriot, possible Trump supporter, possible Proud Boy, but he definitely was a patriot. He was marching with the patriots. You have this white BLM supporter that takes like it's like the wire of an umbrella and attempts to start to whip a black patriot in broad daylight in front of hundreds of people with cameras rolling all over the place and a bunch of black people just sitting there watching on both sides, because Black Lives Matter is what? It is a movement that is against the brutality of black people and predominantly coming from white people, right? That's their message. And no one says a thing. And this guy's wearing clown shoes. And they want to be taken serious? This guy's literally trying to whip a black guy wearing clown shoes as if he's doing some kind of social justice for the black community. And this represents Black Lives Matter. Why? Because this is in the Black Lives Matter protest. And these people, they all back each other up. They all literally support each other as they're marching. And this is the result. CNN doesn't cover it. Don Lemon doesn't cover this. Anderson Cooper doesn't cover this. Can you imagine if it was flipped? Can you imagine if a white Trump supporter attempted to whip a Black Lives Matter supporter in broad daylight in the middle of a march? It would be headline news. It would make millions of views, especially in left-leaning media. It would be the talk of the entire country for months. But just because it's flipped, no one says a thing. Nobody's outraged. I didn't see any black people outraged in the middle of a march that's supposed to be anti-black people getting brutalized and beaten by white people. No. They continued. They supported that guy. No one condemned him. No one probably even noticed what was happening. That they are becoming the very thing that they claim to fight against. And anyone that does what they claim and condemn in their own movement, whether they're white or black, they support them. They protect them. Why? Because their movement is hypocritical. None of this has anything to do with black people. None of this has anything to do with Black Lives Mattering. Because if that were the case, then all of the black lives that are being lost due to the rioting and the black lives that are being lost due to the autonomous zones and all of the absolute lawlessness that's taking place in blue cities and blue states because of Black Lives Matter protests and demands of defunding the police, and now even black people are becoming victims of that? Where's Al Sharpton on that one? Where's Don Lemon on that one? Where's the SJW Hollywood elite left on any of this? I didn't hear anyone on Twitter condemn what I posted. Why? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. These people are liars. They don't care about black people. It's about subversion. It's about power. That's why it's always, always, always about a narrative. Because if it doesn't fit the narrative, they cannot enforce their agenda over somebody. And if they cannot enforce their agenda over somebody, then it means nothing and it has no power to it. Unless it fits their narrative, it has the power to control somebody. And when you have a white Black Lives Matter supporter attempting to whip a black patriot in broad daylight, it has no power. That's not going to get the rage mob all worked up and storming the streets and burning down businesses. That's not going to make news. It doesn't fit the narrative. You can't control people with that. You can't get people all pissed off in the black community with that. Oh, why? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. It's not about black people. It's not about social justice. It's about a narrative. It's about control. And the black community is being played right now, is being used right now as political pawns in order to advance a Marxist agenda in the USA. If you can't see that by now, then you need to really wake up and start studying up on what's taking place when it comes to policy and when it comes to what these people actually believe. Because I have a lot of people on Twitter, on Instagram, on all my social media outlets that comment on all my stuff and like, oh, well, you only talk about the crazy Black Lives Matter people. You only cover them. They're peaceful. They're not communists. They're not radical. Are you serious? The co-founder of Black Lives Matter has publicly come out on behalf of the other founders of Black Lives Matter and has clearly come out and made their position known that they are trained Marxists. That's a communist. That's a radicalist. That's not someone that believes in liberty or freedom. Karl Marx believed in absolute suppression of the elite or anyone that disagrees with their social justice narrative of whatever generation it may be. And when it comes to Marxism, these people are in complete opposition of the Constitution and liberty and freedom. This is why Ilhan Omar is coming out and saying, hey, don't just defund the police. Don't take a fraction away. Take down the whole thing. Take it all down so we can revamp the country. What do you think they want to revamp the country to, my friend? A new version of America that's constitutionally based? No. The only way to bring in their communist utopia is to convince a bunch of Americans that the Constitution is racist, irrelevant, and needs to be removed from the United States of America in order to bring in what? That's subversion. The only way communism can be fully established in the United States of America is if you remove the Constitution. And that is exactly where these people want to go. You think defunding the police is about removing law? It's not just that. They want to move in their own regime. They want to move in their own people. They want to move in their new version of what law and order is in their minds. And what that is chaos. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a Marxist society. These people are clearly unhinged. They're not peaceful. They're not at all. I mean, that's not a racist thing to say. That's just the truth. I show you guys facts all the time. I'm literally on the ground covering this stuff. CNN doesn't show this to you. Even aspects of Fox News don't show this to you. But I show you because I want you to see the truth. Am I biased in the sense that I'm a little more pro-America and pro-Constitution over Marxism? Absolutely. Because even if you disagree with me right now and you're a leftist and you're a Democrat, I will still fight, bleed, and die for your right to speak out against everything that I believe in. Why? Because that's your God-given inalienable right, and that comes with the Constitution. And these people want to take that away even from you. This is all about power. This is why all the hypocrisy is taking place. This is why a white guy that supports Black Lives Matter in their march can get away with attempting to whip a black guy. That's a patriot. And no one says a thing. Why? Yes, because they're hypocrites, but because it doesn't fit the narrative. Now, what does that mean? If it doesn't fit the narrative, they don't have power or control over the masses. And that's what this is about. And you need to wake up to that reality, because if you haven't waken up to that reality, you are in some dangerous territory, because you're most likely an NPC, a lemming, or a robot that's being programmed by these people. Oh, and if you still think that I'm being, a little unfair to this movement, even later in the night, there were more protesters. Literally, as the fireworks were going on, the Proud Boys went to go watch the fireworks. And they were just chilling. They were not bothering anybody. They weren't harassing anybody. They were literally just watching fireworks. And of course, Black Lives Matter supporters found out that they were there, found out that they were Trump supporters, found out that they were Americans, and they started harassing them, and they started hazing them, and they started threatening them with violence, and started cussing at them, saying all kinds of disrespectful things, just instigating violence, to the point where this happened.
Come on, back people, you asshole! Let's go! Not you! Fuck you! Fuck you! What's gonna do? Run your bitch ass on over here! Fuck you! Get back! He's over here. He's over here. Back up. Back up. Get up.
I saw you earlier.
Back up. 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 I just got these circles. He just tore his ACL. I just got him. We got him. We got him. We got him. Act accordingly, officer. Act accordingly. You ain't Hey, back up. Back up. Back up. Move back. Move back.
Sidewalk, sidewalk, sidewalk.
Amen.
So this BLM protester that was instigating violence, that was literally cussing out a bunch of Proud Boys that were just simply watching fireworks, ended up taking a skateboard and stabbing him with it. It's right there on camera. That's physical assault being done in the name of Black Lives Matter. And people are still going to sit here and say, oh, well, they deserved it. Deserved what? In what world is it acceptable to physically assault somebody? That's not a threat to you. That's not hurting you. That's not committing any violence against you. This is not in self-defense. This was done because of who they are. How many videos do I have to show you of Black Lives Matter supporters attacking Trump supporters, physically assaulting them with objects, with unknown liquids? Just because this guy is a Proud Boy, just because this guy is a Trump supporter, just because these guys love America, they deserve to get physically assaulted when they're just watching fireworks, celebrating America with their boys? I know people will sit there and say, that's not what Black Lives Matter is all about, is it? Then why do we keep seeing this? Oh, that's just the radicals. These people are radical. This is why they go on national TV and they tell the entire country, we will do anything we have to, any means necessary. If we don't get our demands, we will burn down the system. And you have a bunch of other radicals within the movement that hear that and they take to the streets and they see anyone that doesn't support them as an enemy, whether left or right, and they will physically assault you. And the media doesn't cover it. Because it doesn't fit the narrative. Because it's all a lie. Why? Because they'll be called a racist. Oh, you can't show black people committing crimes anymore. You can't show black people committing physical assault against anybody, because if you do, you're making black people look bad and you're a racist. Are we living in an America where we have protected classes now, where even criminals with a different kind of skin tone are protected now because of the color of their skin? What is this? Honestly, if I'm honest with you, America, it does seem like black supremacy is definitely making a move in the USA. If you cannot see that, then you're just denying reality. Because when you have a bunch of white people bowing down to black people, that's not equality. It's not equality at all. When I show you footage of a white guy standing up in the middle of two black guys that are arguing, trying to bring peace, and he gets disciplined and shamed instantly for it, and he just bows down to it, that's black supremacy, especially in the middle of BLM Plaza, where you're not allowed. If you're white, you're not allowed to tell a black person what to do. Are you serious? That's why that guy got shamed like that. America's turning into some kind of minority, some kind of persons of color, supremacy driven nation. I don't want that. I'm a Hispanic. I don't want that. I don't want that. My skin color's brown. So if YouTube wants to sit there and continue to deboost me and continue to silence my voice and then turn around and say, oh, we support people of color. Like, you guys are freaking liars because you guys suppress me all the time. And if you want to deboost me for what I'm about to say, then I guess you guys really are hypocrites and you don't support minorities. I don't want to pass. I really don't. That's not equality. I don't want special treatment because I'm a minority. I don't want special treatment because of the color of my skin, because I'm a non-white. I don't want to pass in society. I don't want privilege. I believe in an equal playing field. I grew up playing baseball. Didn't matter what skin color you were. It didn't matter, how much money you had. None of that mattered. What mattered was, especially when you tried out for All-Stars, what mattered was, were you good? Did you have the talent? Were you better than the last kid? Were you better than the next kid? And if you weren't, then you didn't make the team. And it wasn't because of the color of your skin, but because of what you can produce in a profession, in the field. That's how I see life. If I'm better than the next guy, whether he's black, whether he's white, whether he's Mexican, doesn't matter. If I'm better than him, then, I think I deserve an opportunity or a job more than he does because of what I can produce. And vice versa. If they're better than me at what I do, then they deserve that opportunity more than I do because the better man deserves the job. And that's the America that I want to live in. Don't base things on my skin color. Base things on what I'm capable of. Judge a man based upon his character. Judge a man based upon what he produces. I'm not going to hire someone that sucks at what they do. I'm not going to hire someone just because, oh, you're a person of color. I got to hire you because that's racist. Back people up for who they are and back people up for what they can produce. I don't want to pass, YouTube. I don't want to pass, tech lords. If I'm as good as anybody else, then that person deserves the spotlight and the platform because they earned it. Alrighty, guys, thank you guys for joining me for this episode of the Lives Matter official podcast. You guys are the Real News Gang. You guys are the hands and feet of this movement. Make sure to share this video on all your social media platforms, wherever you are, wherever you could blast a link, share this video so people can hear this information. And also, I am demonetized here on YouTube. I obviously don't run ads anymore, so all the revenue that I do gain is from your personal donations. And if you would like to support me monthly, you can on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Or if you'd like to give a one-time donation, the link is in the description below as well. All of the proceeds go to helping me as an independent creator and reporter. So everything I do and produce here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever I post is all independently done by myself, and also the man on the street interviews. And when I'm covering real news in real time on the ground, wherever I go in the USA, all the proceeds are literally going directly to that. And I thank you for that because without you, I wouldn't be able to get this done. So thank you, America. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet and turn on the bell notification so you never, ever miss a post from me. Until next time, America, stay free.